אנחנו נמצאים בתחנת הרכבת של רודניה. כאן הייתה תחנת הרכבת שבה היו מגיעים כל החסידים, כל רחבי רוסיה לרבי. כל החסידים במשך כל הדורות, מאז שבאה הרכבת לעולם, היו מגיעים ללובביץ' דרך תחנת הרכבת הזאת של רודניה.
פיצ'ה, the wagon driver, among many others, used to wait for the many Hasidim who came to bask in the presence of the Rebbe. There was no other means of transportation at that time, and the Hasidim made their way to Lubavitch on a horse-drawn carriage, a trip which lasted 2 hours. In the wagon of פיצ'ה, the wagon driver, everyone was equal. The learned chassid and the simple chassid, all squeezed together on the same broken bench. Already as a child, it was obvious that he had the talents of a genius. At the age of 10, his father took him out of Cheder and hired a private teacher who was great in Torah. In 1847, he married his niece, the Rebbetzin Sterna, the daughter of his brother, Rabbi Chaim Shner Zalman. The wedding was very joyous, and thousands of Hasidim took part in the celebration. But the happiness did not last long. During the Sheva Brachos, the bride was diagnosed with a very serious illness, and after a period of 3 months, she passed away. Two years later, in 1849, the Rebbe Maharash married his cousin, the Rebbetzin Rivka, the granddaughter of the Mittler Rebbe. At a young age, his father sent him all over the world in order to help Jews in need. Although he was his youngest son, his father, the Tzemach Tzedek, wanted him specifically to take his place in the leadership of Chabad. He wrote to the Chassidim, "You must listen to him as you listen to me." On the 13th of Nisan, 1866, after the passing of the Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe Maharash replaced him in the leadership of Chabad. The Rebbe Maharash used to say the following saying, "The world is of the opinion that if it is not possible to go from below, then it is necessary to go from above. And I say that from the beginning, one should go from above." During the leadership of the Rebbe Maharash, the Jews of Russia endured great suffering at the hands of the Russian government. The government abused the Jews and even encouraged rioting and pogroms. Thousands of Jews from all parts of Russia and the Ukraine were hurt in those pogroms. The Rebbe did all he could with true self-sacrifice to prevent the pogroms. For that purpose, he met with leaders from all over the world and asked them to intercede with the Russian government and protect their Jewish citizens. The Rebbe traveled many times to the capital city of Petersburg, where he met with heads of state and pressed them to take strong measures against the rioters.
אנחנו נמצאים כאן בצרסקי סילו, כפר המלך, כפר של הצאר. כאן גרו כל הצארים מחוץ לעיר. העיר הזאת נמצאת מחוץ לפטרבורג, 25 קילומטר מפטרבורג. וכאן גרו כל בני האצולה של פטרבורג. כבוד בשעת אדמו"ר המהר"ש, כשהיה מגיע לפטרבורג, כדי לבטל את הגזירות על הפרעות שהיו על היהודים, היה יושב פה במקום הזה, במקום המפואר הזה.
The Rebbe's actions were fruitful, and he brought calm to all parts of Russia. In 1882, the Rebbe became seriously ill, and on the 13th of Tishrei, he passed away at the young age of 48. He is buried in the Ohel in Lubavitch, beside his father, the Tzemach Tzedek. Rebbetzin Rivka, the wife of the Maharash, was one of the central figures in Lubavitch. She passed away on the 10th of Shvat, 1914, 31 years after the passing of her husband. She is buried next to the Ohel of our Rebbes and leaders. At the age of 3, he entered the study of his grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, every day, at which time the Rebbe would test him and enjoy his company. At the age of 5, he sat and learned Torah with great concentration and diligence. At the age of 8, he began to participate in relating the Chassidus of his father, the Rebbe Maharash. At the age of 14, he started repeating before the Chassidim the Chassidic discourses of his father. The passing of his father, the Rebbe Maharash, at such a young age shocked the Chassidim, who remained orphans, without a leader and Rebbe. His sons were young and refused to take their father's place. During the first year after his father's passing, the Rebbe Rashab withdrew to his room. He did not receive anyone and did not answer any questions, but he did begin to repeat Chassidus for the Chassidim immediately after the passing. Even though he did not accept the leadership officially, thousands of Chassidim flocked to him to hear words of Chassidus and to be blessed by him. The Rebbe also dealt with the general problems of Russian Jewry. For that purpose, he often traveled to many countries and to the capital city of Petersburg. In 1892, the government banished the Jews from Moscow. The Rebbe arranged for them to receive both shelter as well as monetary support. The Rebbe officially accepted upon himself the leadership only 2 years later, in 1894. A turning point in the Hasidic world, the Rebbe establishes a yeshiva by the name of Tomchei Temimim for young students in Lubavitch. This yeshiva quickly becomes the source from which many Hasidim stem. The Rebbe thus halts the spiritual deterioration of the young generation.
אנחנו נמצאים כאן במוזיאון שנבנה בחצר רבותינו נשיאנו בלובביץ'. המוזיאון ממוקם איכשהו כאן במקום הזה. כאן במקום הזה, זה המקום, הבניין הזה היה הזל הגדול. מולו, הבית הגדול הזה היה הבית של כבוד קדושת אדמו"ר הריי"צ. הבית היותר קטן היה הבית של אדמו"ר הרש"ב. כאן היה הזל הקטן, הבית של אדמו"ר המהר"ש, וכאן היה הבית של הרבנית רבקה.
Here, in this place, the Tomchei Temimim Yeshiva was established. It stood for more than 20 years until 1918. In 1902, the financial situation of Russian Jewry was at its worst, especially so of Jews living in the small villages. The Rebbe Rashab committed himself to helping them. One of his actions was to establish a large knitting factory in the city of Dubrovna in White Russia. Many Jews from that city and from surrounding villages were employed there.
אנחנו נמצאים כעת בעיר דוברובנה. העיר דוברובנה הייתה עיר חסידית עוד מזמנו של אדמו"ר הזקן. רובם של תושבי העיר היו חסידי חב"ד. החסיד הידוע ביותר של העיר היה הגאון החסיד רב נחמיה דוברובנה, שהיה חתנו של רב חיים אברהם, בנו של אדמו"ר הזקן. וכשמגיעים למדור אדמו"ר הרש"ב, כותב הרבי בלוח היום יום. בשנת תרס"ב מייסד, זאת אומרת אדמו"ר הרש"ב, מייסד בעזרת האחים הנדיבים פול יעקב, בית חרושת להריגה ולמתווה צמר בעיר דוברובנה פלח מוגילב. ובערך 2,000 יהודים עובדים בו ומתפרנסים בו ברווח. וכאן אנחנו נמצאים, מאחוריי נמצא המפעל שעובד עד היום הזה. הגרמנים יימח שמם כשהגיעו לדוברובנה, הם אספו את כל היהודים של דוברובנה בחצר המפעל היהודי. וכאן, בחצר המפעל, הם רצחו את כולם בימי מלחמת העולם השנייה.
In the year 1910, the Rebbe sent 7 students and a Rosh Yeshiva from Lubavitch to the city of Hebron in Eretz Yisrael, where he established the Teres Emes Yeshiva. In the year 1915, during the course of the First World War, while the German army was making its way towards the vicinity of Lubavitch, the Rebbe and his family left Lubavitch and moved to the city of Rostov-on-Don in the south of Russia. Rostov then became the capital of Chabad for the next 8 years. In the year 1918, the Rebbe bought this building on Brodsky Street. The Rebbe lived there for 1.5 years until his passing. During the past few years, Agudas Chasidei Chabad redeemed the building and established a yeshiva where tens of students from all parts of the world study. Several years ago, the mikveh which the Rebbe built was discovered. It was renovated for the benefit of the students and for the many visitors who come there. After Purim in the year 1920, the Rebbe's illness worsened. In the evening of the 2nd of Nisan, he asked to have his bed moved to the room where he received Hasidim for Yechidus. His last words were, "I am going to heaven. The writings I leave to you." The Rebbe was laid to rest in the old cemetery in Rostov. In 1939, when the Hasidim heard that the Soviet government was planning to destroy the old Jewish cemetery, they transferred his holy body at night, through great self-sacrifice, to the new cemetery. The Rebbe Rayatz was the only son of the Rebbe Rashab and the Rebbetzin Sterne Sora. He is named after his grandfather from his mother's side, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak of Avroch, who was the son of the Tzemach Tzedek. Because he was an only son, his father raised him with special devotion. In spite of his young age, he was sent many times on special missions, some of which were dangerous, for the benefit of the general public. When he was 17 years old, he married the Rebbetzin Nechamadina, daughter of Rabbi Avram Schneerson of Kishinev, the grandson of the Tzemach Tzedek. At the age of 18, the Rebbe Rashab appointed him to be the head of the Tomchei Temimim Yeshiva in Lubavitch. The Rebbe did a great deal to improve the situation of Russian Jews. For that purpose, he traveled many times to the capital city of Petersburg and met with heads of state. Many times his activities entailed real self-sacrifice. The Rebbe Rayatz was imprisoned 4 times because of his activities on behalf of Russian Jewry. In 1915, he moved, together with his father, the Rebbe Rashab, to the city of Rostov-on-Don in the south of Russia. Before his passing, his father told him, "Yosef Yitzchok, you should have real self-sacrifice for teaching Torah with fear of heaven and for maintaining Judaism." After his father's passing, the Rebbe accepted the leadership upon himself. It is a period of terror of the tyrannical communist government, who has set as its objective the uprooting of Judaism from the Jewish nation. Rivers of blood flowed throughout the country, and the main victims were the Torah-observant Jews. One of the first things which the communists did after they took power was to uproot from the Jews their belief in one God. With that purpose in mind, they gathered reckless young Jews who were members of the Communist Party and established the Yevsektia, which means the Jewish unit. The first action of the Yevsektia was to close all the yeshivas and chadorim and to destroy the Jewish community. The most severe punishments were imposed on anyone who opened a yeshiva or a cheder. Many Jews were sent to the Siberian wilderness without any trial. At a future time, the government gave an order to close all synagogues and religious institutions. All yeshivas and Jewish schools were closed.
Быстрее давай, пошевеливайся! Давай быстрее! Бегом, бегом давай!
The Rebbe fought against all this with true self-sacrifice. For that purpose, the Rebbe established an underground organization whose objective was to renew the activities of the destroyed Jewish community.